Okay. All right. I, Chair Hansen, call the Construction Industry Energy Board meeting of February 18th, 2025 to order at 9:33 on February 18th, 2025. Katie, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Rich Fry from
Present.
representing the Residential Manufacturer Structure Board.
Present.
Thank you. Matthew Letter, member of the Residential Manufactured Board.
Present.
Thank you. Blake Schlide, officer of the State Department of Energy.
Here.
Thank you, Blake. Ryan Richards, member of the Electrical and Elevator Board.
Present.
Thank you. Gary Heikkinen, member of the Building Code Structures Board.
Here.
Thank you, Gary. Walter Caudle, member of the Mechanical Board.
Present virtually.
Thank you, Walter. Thomas Kyle, Vice Chair, member of the Electrical and Elevator Board.
Present.
Thank you. And Jay Hansen, member of the Mechanical Board, Chair.
Present, virtually present.
Perfect. And we do have quorum, sir.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything with the agenda that they want to bring up to be changed or modified? Is everybody okay with the agenda? Do we need to make any adjustments? Okay, hearing none, I rule that the agenda and order of business is approved. Do any of us board members have anything with the minutes that they would like to see altered or addressed from the last meeting? Minutes from the last meeting? Okay, hearing none, I will rule that the draft minutes of October 15th, 2024 are final and entered. Let's see, we are going to gather again on June 17th. I am assuming it will be the same bat channel and the same bat time. So middle of the year, come June 17th. Make sure you get your haircuts just before then. Pierre, do we have any public comments that you need to share with us?
Thank you, Chair Hansen, members of the board. For the record, my name is Pierre Spa, Policy Analyst with the Division. As of this morning, we haven't received any requests for public comment. I'll keep the line open in case anyone's connected virtually today that would like to provide public comment for a moment. If not, we can move on.
All righty.
Seeing and hearing none, that concludes public comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, we've got energy program update.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. For the record, Mark Heizer with the division. Wanted to give a few updates on the energy program, some things that are happening. For those of you that are also involved in the Oregon Residential Specialty Code, the division has put together a 3-part training course on Chapter 11 of the Residential Code to provide in the 3 parts. One is basics, sort of how the energy code provisions work for the residential code, then a second course on plan review and intake, then a third one that is an inspections course. These are primarily focused on the building officials in the state, but are also available and provide some good additional information for those who are actually designing 1- and 2-family homes. Moving on, the commercial energy program page is getting some continuing updates. Ask folks to, we'll cover that a little bit more under communications, but keep checking back these. We're continuing to get as much information onto the energy program pages as possible to help people in the real world with, technical bulletins and other information for them. One update. since we are using ASHRAE standard 90.1, the was just in Orlando meeting with the committee. They are continuing to move forward with really the last items that will likely be addenda to be included under 90.1 2025. So have seen what updates will happen on that include, and we'll continue to give updates once we see what the items that do finally make it in. We can give some updates if the people are interested in that. But there's still a lot of voting, public comments that are moving forward, just like our process. And we'll see what comes out in the published edition later this year. Thank you, Chair. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them.
I wonder if there's going to be any training for the commercial side offered.
That will be a next item, Chair Hansen.
Thank you. All right. So little foreshadowing there. No one got that. Mark, can we talk about the OEESC rule filing update, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hansen. Again, Mark Heizer with the division. The rule filing to use what will be the 2025 Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code was filed. So now the OEESC, the 2025 OEESC, is our official code. Of course, with the 2021 Energy Code still available for use under the normal grace period, that will be able to be used up until any project put in for permit on July 1st of this year or later will need to be under the new code. So we are continuing to put up new materials with some, we were hoping a lot of grants and work from USDOE would be going forward to help us out with materials. And with that slowing in question at this point, the division is moving forward to fill in a lot of gaps. We are working on the basic, should be posting a general overview code change course, which aligns with presentations that we've been doing for the Oregon building officials at some of their trainings. That will be online soon. We're working on really what will be a 5-part series that will align with what was done for residential. It's a little bit more, of course, for commercial energy, for energy code basics, plan intake and review videos, but with some extra trainings focusing on the additional efficiency credits. How to use ComCheck is one of the very first ones that's going to try and come out as well. On the commercial website, there are updated forms for the 2025 OEESC. And again, keep an eye on this channel for updates coming to a website near you. So if there are any questions from the board, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
I do have one. And if you mentioned this, Mark, I apologize. But how's this going to be advertised to the trades that this is now available? Are we going to be sent all who hold boiler licenses, all who hold a construction business license of any form? Are they going to be somehow informed by DCBS or BCD that this is out there directly, or are we just expecting people to come to the website?
We have, of course, for people who are following, that we have major email blasts that go out for people who actually that sign up for following codes. We're continuing to do outreach to, personally, we go to the Oregon contractors, organizations. We try and have as much outreach through those. We know that we can't get to everyone, but we are trying to get as many email blasts and general division updates posted out there, and whenever possible, trying to get the word spread. Was presented to the ASHRAE chapter for the local designers for trying to get them updated. So just trying our best to make sure people are aware of it. But if there are other ideas, we'd be happy to, again, from the people from the other boards who are present here, if their industries are looking for additional information or outreach, we'd be more than happy to take that under consideration and try and get even more information out.
Excellent. Maybe trade us.
Yeah, Mark, this is Thomas Kyle. You said there were 3 codes available until July 1st. Is it the 21, 24, and it's 25 will be available also?
So under current rule, the OEESC, the 2021, which uses 90.1, 2019, and the alternate method for the use of the IECC, that statewide alternate method, is still available until that date. And then last but not least, the new code that we have just adopted is available. So up until July 1st, the current code paths are still available.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Thomas. All right, we have no appeals. We have no unfinished business because we are such a good committee. So we'll move on to new business. Let's see, we need to review and recommend approval of the Oregon Commercial Reach Code. So I am going to ask Pierre to make a bit of a presentation on that to the board at the moment so that we can consider a motion to amend and approve, or a motion to disapprove, or a motion to just approve. So Pierre.
Good morning, Chair. Also, one quick communication I think Mark forgot to mention is that our environmental policy analyst, Ann Geyer, who has met the board before, does have a presentation on embodied carbon for the board in the near future. We'll be reaching out, Katie and I will be reaching out to the board after this meeting to see if we can maybe get that scheduled sooner than our June meeting if everyone has time. But just keep that on your radar that we do have a presentation on embodied carbon for the board coming soon.
Okay. Probably nobody wants me to ask this question, but I think it's appropriate. Pierre, should we have that presentation and take that information into consideration as it relates to the new Oregon Commercial Reach Code?
No, sorry, Chair, it has nothing to do with this reach code. It's just an overall study on embodied carbon that Ann has been working on that we are presenting to the board.
Okay, so the Reach Code isn't specifically addressing him.
No, it was just a separate thing that I wanted to mention to the board before today's meeting.
All right.
Now moving on.
Let's introduce this item.
Yeah. For the record, Pierce Bob, policy analyst for the committee. Yes, this agenda item is regarding the 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code. The division is requesting that the board review and recommend approval of this Reach Code. Some background. The Oregon Commercial Reach Code is an optional set of standards designed to increase energy efficiency. All municipalities must accept the Reach Code, and it provides an additional efficiency compliance path for builders, consumers, contractors, and others. This is a simplified and enforced path that exceeds energy efficiency regulated by the OEESC. Some feedback, some history on this Reach Code specifically. The division solicited public input and proposals for what should be included in this Reach Code. Interested parties were invited to propose provisions to include comment and proposed methodologies. The solicitation period for the Reach Code was opened on October 29, 2024 through December 15, 2024. We received several proposals, which were refined through outreach and dialogue between division staff and stakeholders. This past January, on January 15th, 2025, we held a rulemaking advisory committee to hear comments and questions regarding the Reach Code and the proposals. All the comments and questions from the January meeting was taking into consideration when the division drafted the proposed 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code. A motion is needed to approve, amend, or deny the recommendation of this Reach Code, examples of which are on your board packet. I'll pass it off to Mark for any technical comments or technical questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pierre. It's been a while since I entertained this language of the Oregon Commercial Reach Code. I might ask Mark for a thumbnail technical presentation. I don't know if that is something that you're prepared to do or able to do, Mark.
Yes, Chair Hansen, Mark Heizer with the division to go through what will be in front of you today. The starting point for the 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code was beginning with the 2021 version that was updated and modified. Going through what is in front of you, of course, one of the items we updated the reference to the plumbing standard, the WE stand, green plumbing or efficient plumbing standard was updated to the most current version. We looked at what was done to the residential reach code, of course. Under that one, we've started to look at making sure we have alignment, point to incentive programs that are out there. So we brought forward the Energy Star program for multifamily housing, since there are incentives available for that. That's one known spot where there are incentives available that could be used under the reach code. And this would be applicable for any multifamily structure, R1, R2, R3 occupancy, regardless of size. One to note that there were no requests to expand the reach code to smaller structures under other paths. There was sort of a trigger size limit set under the 2021 Oregon Commercial Reach Code that were set through public input. Looking at the public proposals, they were reviewed and incorporated where they were appropriate into the final document. The base path for the reach code has been really looking to, under the previous version, had been to be 10% better than the adopted commercial code, which is now the 2025 Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code. We kept the two modeling paths, and we recognize that these are, well-recognized compliance paths that could align with incentives should some jurisdiction or utility want to provide incentives, knowing that this gets to about a 10% improvement above the baseline code. The two performance paths, for those that aren't familiar, one is Chapter 11 of the Energy Code called the Energy Cost Budget Method, and the other is the Appendix G Building Performance Method. Very little modification was needed to bring those forward from the previous version of the Commercial Reach Code. This cycle, we looked at there is a possible way to do a prescriptive path. Under previous versions, it's very difficult to take a prescriptive path and figure out how do we create something that's 10% better. With the inclusion of additional efficiency credits, which each are worth 0.1% of improvement over the code on average. In order to get 10% better, you could increase the number of credits by 100 credits, and then you can get a 10% improvement. That was a public proposal. We brought that in as a prescriptive path under this version. So we added 100 credits to what the current code requires to have a commercial path. The result is sort of having a prescriptive path, basic, which has loads of potential ways to get to compliance. It's easier than another proposal that came in, and this was the one that was included for the prescriptive path. And as previously mentioned, we also have the Energy Star multifamily path. Under the residential reach code, there was a what we called 3 steps. There was sort of an included aspirational path for people who really wanted to get to 0. And one public proposal was to include what is known as Appendix M, which will be included in Standard 90.1 2025. And this appendix is an entirely informative optional path. What it sets is under the Appendix G performance path, tighter aspirational site energy performance factors that are really where the 90.1 committee wants to be in their, quote, 0 if they were to get to zero, quote, zero code in the future. So what we have done under that is bring forward the Appendix M performance targets, which really are what they said is a % lower than ASHRAE 90.1 2004. So it's looking forward to is if you were building the building in 2031 version, this is where they might expect those performance levels to be. So we've got that as a final quote. We call that the aspirational extra path that's available for those that wish to get there. We did not include there. A portion of the appendix has to do with emissions factors. It's outside of our scope, and we would have needed to bring in really Oregon-specific emissions factors if people wanted to do that. It does not prevent people from doing the additional calculations and showing where they might be, say, under LEED or another program where their building emissions might be. And with that, those are the proposed changes to be included in the 2025 Oregon Commercial REACH Code. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Rich Fry. I just want to make sure that this is the same as when we went through the REACH code for the Manufactured Structures Board, that it's difficult for a municipality to make this their state.
I'm sorry, I did miss the last part.
I just want to make sure that there's a process that any municipality would have to go through in order to make the REACH code their standard code. There were some grumblings a couple of years back about a few of the cities wanting to adopt the REACH code as their base code, and we went through that with the Manufactured Structures Board. So that's why I'm just clarifying that it's the same with this one.
Mark Heizer with the division, yes, it would be the same. This is an optional path code, and the same steps would be needed for need to be followed as to any change to the statewide specialty code. So same process would always need to be followed.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Good question. That was a fear of many people, Rich. Any other questions?
Mark, this is Thomas Kyle. Is this a code that you can pick certain elements out of and ignore other ones? Maybe lose the incentives, but you can still adhere to some of the better things that you agree with? Perhaps like you don't want to put in a heat pump water heater, but your tenant wants gas. How does that affect the code? Can they pick and choose?
So so if this were, say, I'm assuming this is more on multifamily, or so this is all optional. So and I am unaware of anything that would point you to having to pick and choose between what systems you are using in the building. There's no mandate for what system type you would be using under this.
But you have to pick something to be making use of the REACH code. You have to choose an option to be stepping up to the REACH code from the baseline, normal, regular, everyday code.
Yes. You have to do items that are above baseline minimum code when you're under the REACH code. And there are lots of options that are available, and so under the prescriptive path, there are multiple ways to get to the number of additional credits that are currently under code. So getting from, say, 40 credits to 140 credits, or energy modeling it, or whatever path, you always have an option of what systems you can put in, how you use them, and so forth. It's and so, yes, but there's a hope that when you're using one of these, that, say, if they're one of the incentive programs, or say your local utility says, if you get 10% better than code, we'll give you some sort of incentive. This is really just a way of showing that, yes, you went at least 10% better than code. And we would hope people can provide something for you when you do that under the REACH code.
Does that make sense, Kyle?
So I still am not quite sure about, you're talking about prescriptive path. If we get 40 points out of 140, is that up to what the utility is giving for a incentive? Or is with prescriptive path, if you're meeting parts of it, but you miss on some others, is there anything in the points that make it incentive worthy or not?
So under the points prescriptive path, currently for our baseline code, it's about, say, let's say your building needed 40 points or 40 credits. If you add another 100 to that, on average, that should give you an additional 10% efficiency overall for the building. But what you pick is, there's a giant list of things that you can go through to get there. So there's always options, and you don't have to use all of them. It's whichever ones are appropriate for your project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Hansen,
questions?
I see there's a hand up.
Chair Hansen, I have a question for Mark.
Thank you.
This is Blake with the Oregon Department of Energy. Not a technical question, but I'm just reading through the language on page 8 of the board packet, and I just had a question on one of the section references, just to make sure that I'm tracking along. But I'm looking at section CR 1302. And in the second sentence, it says data centers shall comply with the OEESC using standard 90.1, section 4.2.1.1, item A, and section CR 1303.3. But there is not a section 1303.3 in the REACH code. I think maybe that should be a reference to 1302.2 instead. If I'm reading it right, and I could be missing something, but I just wanted to point that out. And then there's a similar reference to in the next sentence to CR 1303.1.3 and 0.3, and there's also not those sections. I think it's just a section reference clarification.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point those out as
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate that, and probably something that would need to be put in, so that it would need to be we would appreciate a recommendation from the board to make sure that those references are fixed as part of your motion. Then I believe Pierre would.
Yep. Any other questions? I don't see everybody's hands. I only have 4.
I have a question. This is Matt Lutter, board member. I see this, the proposed REACH code is a nice, succinct 2 pages. And Mark, you mentioned a long list of credits and such. How will users reference those credits, or some of the equations that go from building performance factors to site performance energy indexes? The detail isn't here. Is that going to be on kind of some reference materials on the website later on, or can you expand on that, please?
Okay, so when it comes to the additional efficiency credits, and the good part about the new version of CommCheck is it will do automatic calculation for you and show you how many credits you get from from your design and what you input into CommCheck. So if someone is able to input through the current checklist, you can say that you're seeking, in the input, you can show which credits you're seeking. If it's something like the envelope, it will automatically calculate it for you based on what you did there. So you might get, instead of 12 credits, you might get 14 or 18 if your building's even better. If you pick that, under basic calculation, and you may have only picked, say 40, but you can continue to add and add and add. And If you're putting on renewables, that gives you a lot of credits. If you're doing your lighting, better than code on lighting, you get a whole lot of credits. So it will automatically sum that up for you and tell you how many credits you achieved. So it just doesn't stop at, say, 40. If you saw it and achieved 140, it will tell you that you made 140 credits. So the program actually calculates it, does all the formulas for you quite easily in the program itself. So we can give additional details, say that on a future meeting, show additional on as we show some of the training on that. But it was more robust than expected and is able to, you don't have to do manual calculations. You can do that as part of your turning in your permit information, showing how many, it will show you how many credits you received.
Okay, thank you. So is there additional materials beyond ComCheck? Is ComCheck kind of the main resource, or will there be, I don't know, even a link to the ASHRAE references?
We have links to the ComCheck site. We are developing we have the current ComCheck training. We are modifying that to give additional Oregon specific pieces for that. On the commercial reach code site, we'll need to add, yes, here's how you get to ComCheck, and probably some additional instructions on the commercial reach code page on how to use that to show that you achieved the number of credits that are available. We will update that information and provide enough to help people get through the process.
Okay,
Mark, I hear kind of repeated that I hear the word developing as in ongoing. So we still have opportunities to build out some ideas that this board might be able to bring.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we
on
are
how that process is
here
interacting.
to, any recommendations from members of the board, we're more than happy to keep moving on those. Yes.
Okay, great. Any other questions before we move to a motion? Okay, so I hear none and I do not have any, and I am going to look for a guinea pig to make a motion to approve, motion to amend and approve, and a motion to disapprove. Might there be a motion out there maybe to amend and approve? Gary?
Sure. I will make a motion, and let me see if I can do this properly. I make a motion to recommend approval of the proposed 2025 OCRC to go into effect April 1st, 2025, including any corrections to references and edits necessary to make the document accurate. Is that a good motion?
I think it's really well done, Gary. Does that give staff the direction they need? Staff understand about the cleaning up the references?
For the record, Pierre Sabah, Policy Council Division. As long as we are making sure in the motion we say we are amending and approving, we're good with that. So as long as everyone understands that the motion is to amend and approve with the specific amendments that Gary stated, we should be good.
Well, I can restate it if necessary.
Sure, that would be great for the record, Gary. Thank you.
Okay, so again, a motion to recommend amending and approving of the proposed 2025 OCRC to go into effect April 1st, 2025. Those amendments including correcting references to the correct sections and any other edits that might be necessary. How was that?
Do we have a second? It's great.
Hey, Thomas Kyle will second.
We have a second. Let's see. Do I need to call the roll, Katie?
Yes.
Would you please call the roll? for the vote.
Yep. Rich Fry,
Approve.
Matthew Letter,
Approve.
Walter Cottle,
Approve.
Blake Scheid,
Yes.
Gary Heikkinen,
Yes.
Ryan Richards,
I approve.
Vice Chair Thomas Kyle,
Approve.
and Chair Jay Hansen.
Chair Jay Hansen approves.
All right, the motion is unanimous.
Excellent. Well done, board. Does anyone have an announcement to make before we adjourn? Hearing none, and there being no further business before the February 18th, 2025 Construction Industry Energy Board, I call this meeting adjourned at 10:09 a.m. and thank each of you for your contribution to this very important work for our industry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chair.
Mark.
Thank
Board members.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you all.